I think there may be a good news in there, in that this sort of aid establishment that you described with the sociological fact is probably on its way down. In fact, flows of aid are now in most countries dwarfed by flows of foreign direct investment, and in many countries also dwarfed even by remittances by those Haitians, and Haiti probably being a case in point. Now, I would make a lot of comments. I think that in your movie, you're actually ramming through a few doors that have already been opened. Maybe it's because I'm in this sort of aid business, but the criticizing food aid, et cetera, a lot of the competition, the unfairness, that has actually been realized. I actually don't find that the aid business has been completely incapable of learning. I haven't seen that acknowledged so clearly in your movie, although I won't defend it, I won't go into details, we can keep that for later. The question I wanted to ask is, in fact, what's the alternative model? I think that I've identified a couple of things very clearly that are key, that are fundamental, that I totally understand and support. Proper rule of law with decent governance, and unleashing the creative, innovative entrepreneurship. So on those two sort of big challenges, my first question is, one, is there actually any room for aid? Is there a way, an alternative way, other than this sociological fact that you described that is a little bit evil? Do we need to slash it all out? Is any fixing going to just make more efficient a bad system? Or is there a need and a position for aid? I asked that question because a lot of people snickered at Bono, who said there is room for aid and for proper, well-managed trade. The second question is, seeing, and you gave the US as an example where indeed there is rule of law. I mean, and there is entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurship is highly valued. The US is also a place where now, over the past 15, 20 years, inequality has been really increasing, to the extent that, like, for about 15% of the population, their expectancy of life has actually reduced over the last decades. I mean, that's pretty shocking. I mean, is that, in fact, the model? If not, what is? Is there a model? I actually could think of countries that I thought had developed, partly thanks to aid, but I mean, is there a country that would have actually developed to a point that you consider we can take it as a model?
Aid tends to breed crony capitalism, as we try to show in the social fact. I mean, it's not just crony capitalism, but also this whole kind of industry. So you have Catholic Relief Services, as we say, getting 70% of its budget from aid. I mean, all these organizations become kind of connected. And so I'm a little skeptical about how it would work. My biggest kind of worry to your answer, and this is not going to do justice to your very good and complex question, is, you know, of course aid is capable of learning, and the aid establishment is capable of learning, and I had really nice talks just 2 weeks ago at USAID. But it's what we were critiquing is the dominant narrative, the dominant approach over the last 75 years, which is still pretty dominant. And the one thing you hear all the time is, like, aid agencies saying, like, yes, but we're learning. Yes, but at whose expense are you learning? And how long is it going to take to learn? And I think that, you know, we're almost so, like, we take our benevolence and our sentimentality so seriously that this covers a multitude of sins. And I think that while it is true aid agencies are capable of learning, I think Herman Chinnery Hesse's point is generally correct. Most nations that become wealthy don't get wealthy on aid. And so there has to be, I think, a different model.
Addressing what you said, I think it's really important to just set out there that we don't believe in utopian systems. So like the principles that are being explored and affirmed don't promise utopia and perfection and an end to poverty in all forms. And I think sometimes we get into debates about poverty and we start saying, well, that can't be because that's what we have in the US and there's still poor people here. It's like the fact that there are poor, that there's still poverty doesn't negate incrementally better alternatives, right? So we can say, no, we can't achieve utopia, but we do see from all of these different analyses, we see opportunities to be better. And I think that's really important to keep in mind. And the film is by no means presenting you with a donate here button. Here's the new fashionable silver bullet that everybody should sign up for. I read a really good book recently, In Defense of Food by Michael Pollan. And in the book, he's critiquing the industrial food system in a very similar way that we're critiquing the industrial aid system. And he says at the end of the book, or near the end of the book, he said, something important I want to say to you, I'm not trying to prescribe a menu for you. I'm not trying to tell you what to eat. I'm trying to give you eating algorithms or mental programs and principles that if you run these while you're at the grocery store, it'll produce an infinite variety of meals that are healthy in the fullest sense of what the word healthy means. And I think that's why we're trying to focus on principles and not on models, if you will.
We're comparing reasonable alternatives, not the platonic form of development versus, I think that's very important.